And which is the cheapest? Water is next. Water is the you can't live 3 days without water. We're going to learn that in the box. In fact, let's see if we can find it. Let's take a look at page 380. Verse 22. Moses caused Israel to journey from the Sea of Reeds, and they went out to the wilderness of Shur. They went for a 3-day period in the wilderness, but they found no water. Why is that important to learn? Because you can't live 1 to 3 days without water. Rabbis want to teach an amazing lesson from this, by the way. We know that Torah learning is compared to water. You can't live without water. You can't live without Torah. Rabbis learn, can't go 3 days without learning. 3 days? So the rabbis thought and said the following. Even if you're not learning, and you don't have a shiur to go to, or a chavrusa to go to, at least you go to shul. If you go to shul on Shabbat, you hear the Torah being read. But that's only once a week. So that was Moshe Rabbeinu set up every Shabbat. We should learn the parasha, which we're doing right now, and we'll read it from the Torah on Shabbat. But then Ezra Cohen came. Ezra Sefer, Ezra the scribe came along, and he said, "You know what? Let's add 2 other rules to the reading of the Torah. Monday and Thursday. 3 times a week we will read the Torah. Monday to Thursday, Thursday to Shabbat, Shabbat to Monday. Which means what? You'll never miss Zahab. Very good. Oh, you're on the ball. That's right. Did you just figure that out? Did you know that? Did you know that? Or you just figured it out?
I heard about it.
You heard about it. All right. He said a great thing. Zahav is gold. How do you spell Zahav, Barney? Zion, hey, bet. Zion, hey, bay. How much is Zion?
7.
Hey.
5.
Hey. Second day of the week? Ah, you got it. So, right? Monday, Thursday, Monday is what we read. That told you that Torah's gold. Zahav. Torah's gold. And you can't go 3 days without learning. So that's teaching us 3 days without water, 3 days without learning, right? you gotta have nourishment. Imagine a person goes 1 to 3 days without learning Torah. His brain fries up or dries up. So we learn that the next most important commodity in the world is water. And water is pretty cheap, I guess. I mean, let's put it this way. If you come to the shul on Monday and Thursday, you don't have to pay anything until you hear the Torah being read. If you go to the park and you're playing ball, and you finish getting all sweated up, and you go to the water fountain, right? There's no charge for pressing the button and drinking some water. But the next most important thing to need to survive is food. Now, what's more expensive, food or water? Food. Now, I mean, you can't live without food. Undernourished, you're dead. You know? But the next most important thing, if that's clothing, what's more expensive, clothing or food? Clothing. Right? Clothing, right? And the next most important thing is lodging. What's the most expensive thing on this list? Lodging. Correct? All right. Anyway, so these people are going to go into a desert. And in the desert, they're going to find no water, no food, and no lodging. Whoa. I mean, they'll be able to breathe. Never know about those desert sandstorms, whatever. You may sit down, free of charge. Learning, by the way, is another thing that's free. You want to pay, it's your business, but learning is free. Torah is free. Moses taught the people free, you can learn free. So you understand that, that the more essential it is, the freer it is. The less essential it is. I think I don't know if you go around with cloth loins. on the lawns and I can't wear too much food, clothing. But I mean, clothing, I mean, so you don't wear the best clothing, you know? And you don't live in the best house, but, because you can't afford it, whatever, unless you can. But the point is that all that's not gonna happen in the desert. So the slave mentality looks at himself and says, hey, God, what do you think? You want me to leave my home, the house? I mean, I'm living in one of those homeless tents, you know, but it's better than that. And you want me to go to a place where there's barely any air, and there's no food, and there's no drink, and hey, God, maybe I should go back to Egypt. So every time that something goes wrong, the Jews say, Nashuv Mitzrayim. So it's not an empty threat. The mentality, you know, because listen, let's face it, the other stuff that you want, food and drink and clothing and shelter, you're gonna have to fight for that. If you're a slave, you get it free. You just get you get live every day, no big deal. You see that, right? On the other hand, if you want to be free, it's gonna cost you. How much? $100, $500, $10,000. How much is food and drink and clothing and shelter going to cost you? It's going to cost you total trust. I have no money. I have no clothing. I have no food. You have to trust in Hashem if you want to be free. That's what it costs, and that's how much you have to pay to have that trust. Some people are happy to be employees. I work for the boss and I'm happy. And I do my job. I get my salary, I get my check, maybe a bonus here and there. And then I spend my money on what I need to feed my family and I'm done. But no, I have bigger ambitions. Some people, I want to be a CEO of the company. I want to become, and chart my own destiny. Well, then you want big time, you want big stuff, right? You're not satisfied with mediocrity or slavery. You got to be willing to go into the desert and gamble. Everything in life's a gamble and risk. Some is win, some is you lose, you know. But the only one thing that's solid that you can count on. What's that? Who's that? Hashem. If you have that, then you might have the courage to go out and try to find something that's better, shall we say? In any event, so Hashem takes these slaves out, Pharaoh sends them out, and Hashem now takes control to lead them, and he leads them not on the path of the Philistines because it was near. For God said back to people who reconsider. Reconsider what? Going back to the train, right? When they see a war. What's the war? The Philistines are a warlike people. The Philistines sound similar to the Palestinians. That's not exactly, that's not a coincidence. But they're warlike people, they're violent people. And they're gonna see wars. And this war will be pitted one Philistine nation against another Philistine nation. And they're gonna fight, maybe another one. I mean, and the Israelis, the Israelites, the Jews, what are they gonna see? They're gonna see fighting. What are they gonna do? They'll say, hey, I don't want this is scary. They'll go back, let's go back and reconsider, let's go back to the tribes. So God didn't take them that path because if they would see the war, they would reconsider. Now, and they will return to Egypt. So let's understand how it works now. God does not lead them to the land of the Philistines because it was there. Explain to me the word because. How does because fit in? He doesn't take them to the near place, even though you might think that that's the better place, and the Jews might think it's the better place, and you might think so, but God says, no. In other words, you're doing his job. And as you're doing his job, you're as you're doing this job, you are working hard, and you see roadblocks in the way. This problem, that problem, this problem, that problem, right? So if you're a slave mentality, all you do, you'll give up. I'll go back to collecting stucco. I'll go back and become poor again. I can't tell you, I'm afraid. If you're a slave mentality, if you're a free person with a sense of your own independence, you say, well, maybe there's a law, there's a roadblock, not doing so well, business is bad, no biggie, because I trust in Hashem. But those that don't trust in Hashem, because they trust in their immediate master. Who was their immediate master? Not God, Egypt. So they trusted Egypt or relied on Egypt, right? So therefore, in relying on Egypt, they went ahead and no charge. Oh, you got your own. Look at that hot stuff. What are you hot stuff? So again, the idea is, if you're willing, if you're an independent person and you're not a slave mentality, you can handle the problems. You'll handle a war. You won't get involved. You'll learn to stay safe. You'll find a way to avoid it and move forward. But if you're a scaredy cat because you're afraid of what? Of all the pitfalls of life, and you have a slave mentality and you want to go back to security, so what do? You give up and you go back to Egypt. So God knew that the Jews would do that because they're not free men yet. They're not free people yet. He knew. So because it was near, that's why he took them away. Because don't ever think that the near road is a successful road, or the easy road is a successful road. The harder it gets, the more success there is. In other words, if you see a lot of roadblocks and obstacles and stuff, it's easy to give up and get discouraged. But if you trust Hashem, you understand that these roadblocks don't mean anything. They're all part of Hashem's what? Hashem's path. They're all part of Hashem's way of finding you, the helping you climb over the hurdles. Don't worry, you'll get over the hurdles. You'll manage. You'll make it. And that's how Hashem's trying to get across this message. Don't ever get discouraged because you see a war. Don't ever get discouraged because you see pitfalls or problems or difficulties along the path. Don't get all ruffled by it. Because why? Because God has a bigger plan. Because you're in trust. You're trusting God. Because who else you going to trust in the desert? Who else you going to trust? Unless you want to go back to what? Egypt. That's a choice. You want to go back and be a slave? Or do you want God? You want to be a baby and not have the courage to build your life? Or are you going to give up and just say, you know what? Let's go back to Egypt. It's better off there. So God doesn't want them to do that. Because God's got big plans for the Jewish people. He wants to teach them to rely on him so they can become great. So he doesn't take them there. Because he knows if they see a war, what are they going to do? They're going back to the church. They're going to run back. Okay. God turns the people towards the wilderness, to the Sea of Reeds. The children of Israel were armed when they went up from Egypt. What that means is a whole story in of itself. In any event, Moses took the bones of Joseph with him. Remember Joseph dying 200 years ago, or 130 years ago, sorry. No, more than that. 130 years ago, right. 130 years before the Exodus from Egypt, Joseph died. So Joseph said, I want to be buried in Israel, but there's no one around to bury me. When my father Jacob died, he appointed me. I had the power, so to go home. But here, so please, when you leave Mitzrayim, he's telling the Jews, I don't know when you're going to be free. I don't know when Mashiach's coming. I don't know when redemption's coming. But whatever it does, don't forget me. Don't forget me. Take me with you. Taking him with you is a story in itself. And anyway, who does it? Moses does it. Okay, Moses takes the bones of Joseph because he firmly adjured. I don't know what the word adjured means. He firmly made them swear. He made them swear to the children of Israel, saying, God will surely remember you. Don't worry, you're going to get out of here. And when you do, and I'll be dead, you shall bring up my bones here from here with you. What? B67. No? Sometimes I'm teaching, and as I teach this, the person is looking at the flush. He's looking at me as if the words are written over here. Hey, boy, come here. Inside the book. Yeah, you have any chumash in your life? Oh, there you go. Come on, time to get it earlier, quicker. Okay, so what happens? So this is a great moment in Jewish history. Would you think that this was probably the greatest moment in Jewish history? Yes. Would you say that this is the greatest moment in Jewish history? The departure of Egypt. We become a nation. They got free. They had the great name, the great people of Israel. Amazing moment in Jewish history. Yetzias Mitzrayim. Well, I do want to talk about the arms of the Jews, what they mean, and also the story of Joseph's bones. But I'm going to delay it if we have time, and digress just a moment to next week's parsha, Parshas Yisro, which is on page 395. Jethro. That means Yisro in Hebrew, or Yitro. He is a minister of Midian. He's a religious minister. He's a priest. He's known as a Kohen. 395. Now he's a goy. And in fact, he's what kind of goy? He is the kind of goy that is the leader of the goy. He's the head man. He's running the church. He's a priest. In Midian.
Advisor to Pharaoh.
And he wasn't advised, but he got kicked out. And there were 3 advisors to Pharaoh. And if we get a chance, we'll talk about those 3 later on tonight. And Yisro was one of them. But Yisro, Pharaoh wanted this idea of slavery, and Yisro didn't buy it because Yisro had a certain instinctive decency within him, and therefore he runs back to his homeland in Midian. And of course, you all know that Yisro plays a very strong role in Moshe Rabbeinu's life. Anyone want to tell me how?
His father-in-law.
His father-in-law, right? Moshe ran away from Egypt until the Egyptian life, and he came to Midian. He saw Yisro's 7 daughters, and he saw that Yisro's 7 daughters were being oppressed by some male shepherds. They were the shepherds of Yisro's flock because Yisro had no sons. So he sent his daughters out to shepherd the flock, and they were being oppressed at the well by the male shepherds who were beating up on these girls so that they should get the water first. But the real reason they were beating up on them is not because boys beat up girls. It's another reason. Because they were angry at these girls' father.
Yitro was also Moses' advisor.
Correct.
He advised
But
him.
you're jumping the gun. Wait. He became that. Yisro was hated in his homeland because when Yitro left Paro's court and ran away because he wouldn't acquiesce and agree to slavery.
The whole town was done.
The whole town was angry at him. And when he began to abandon his position as priest of the church, because he began to embrace or want to embrace the sense of the one God, they really were angry at him. And therefore, they've oppressed his daughters. So who comes to our salvation? Who's the hero?
Moshe Rabbeinu.
Moshe Rabbeinu saves the girls. Yay. Damsel in distress. Or 7 damsels in distress, actually. Because it's interesting thing about Yisro. Yisro had 7 daughters, those had 7 names. And they want to say that that's not a coincidence. Because each time he had to marry off his daughter, he went broke and changed the name. Because it was a tough thing to marry. Some of that was okay. Marrying off your daughter costs money. That's a joke. That's not real. Not a real pshat. If you want to quote me on the joke, that's well, but it's a great joke. Though. Anyway, so Moshe saves the girls. They invite him home, and he marries one of them, Yitzhak. And of course, you know that he goes to work for his father-in-law, a good Jewish boy, and he is a flock, he shepherds a flock of Yitro. And finally, one day he sees the bush burning, not burning down. He sees the snare. God appears to him. We didn't talk much about the snare, did we? We didn't talk about that, about the bush, the burning bush much. No, we haven't got to talk about that. That's it. That's another great moment. But he sees the bush, and Hashem appears to him and tells him to take the Jews out of Mitzrayim. And he argues with Hashem, I'm not the one, and I can't do it, and I'm not good enough, and the people listen to me, and I don't speak well, I have a stutter, you know. Anybody know how Moshe Rabbeinu got a stutter?
Yeah.
Tell us. Well, tell us. Tell us to the class.
Powerful was no, Power advisor thought he was the next one is going to be
He's going to take over the kingdom. Why? Why did Paro's advisor say, watch out for this little boy? Because he was playing one day.
He took the crown.
Say about it.
He took the crown from.
Good. So these people, he was playing around, sat down on Paro's throne, put on Paro's crown, and of course, the magician said, "Uh-oh, watch out! This boy is going to be down. He's going to take over your kingdom, and cause you all sorts of troubles." And they said, Paro said, "Don't be silly. He's a baby. He doesn't know what he's doing. So give him a test. What was the test?" Well, there was coals and gold.
Let's see which one here.
And let's see what he goes for. We put him in a room all alone, you know? And they put him in for the coals, in for the gold, and let's see what he goes for. If he goes for the gold, he's an intelligent kid, kill him. If he goes for the gold, he's stupid, let him stay alive. So Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, what does he do? Goes for the gold. But then an angel came by and shoved him aside into the coals, tinged his tongue, and singed his tongue, and he became a stutterer. Of course, we want to also, there was a story about a young couple that had a little boy, also about 6 or 8 years old, precocious kid, and he was really a great kid. He was learning and davening and doing all the good things, but at the same time, he had some other outside interests, and he wanted to go to this party, this and that, you know, and they were really worried about this 8-10-year-old kid, you know, like, so they said, we'll give him the Moshe Rabbeinu test. They put him in a room, and they put there chumash, money, and a bottle of schnapps. And they figured whichever one he'd go for, that's what it's going to become his life. You know? So they came in the room, and they found that he took all 3. Oh my God, they said, it's going to be with this kid. Very simple, he'll become a Chabadnik.
Go rabbi.
He'll become a Chabad rabbi. You know, the Chabad guys do. Collect money, drink, and learn Torah. I mean, they're good at the drinking, I can tell you that. They're the best at that. I can't match them. And I'm pretty good.
Rabbi,
Yes, sir.
Moshe Rabbeinu's infancy origin has a connection with Abraham Avinu's as well, because both of them had wise men that prophesied that the child would be the cause for the topple of their path.
I understand that motion was not my problem.
Oh, well, Avraham was taken into the cave and hidden, but the baby that was left
When did you go study there?
As a-
He wasn't.
as a child by his father. Yeah. Yeah, the
Oh, that's-
Nebuchadnezzar, right? Is it Nebuchadnezzar? Is it
Not a
not?
problem,
No.
Okay, you better, you find this. Find this.
The real reason behind Moshe Rabbeinu not accepting the mission to take Israel out of Egypt wasn't because he couldn't speak well.
Well, there was a lot of, there was give and take between Moshe and Hashem.
No, but there was the main reason, because Moshe was worried that his elder brother.
Correct, that was in the 5th point. There were 5 points that Moshe argued. One is I'm not worthy. B is that the Jews won't listen to me. C is that I don't understand, I don't know all about Hashem. I don't know enough about you. I don't know if you're the truth. 4D is that and he still felt that he wasn't good enough because he studied. And 5 is his older brother. So these 5 issues need to be discussed.
Yeah, but only when Hashem reassured him that his brother was.
Yeah, but by that time Hashem was angry at him. When you ask questions from God, sometimes they're legitimate, sometimes they're not. They're legitimate, God will answer you. If they're not, God will get angry at you. And when he gets angry at you, then he makes a major change in the whole experience. And that's what happened with Aaron and Aaron. But that we'll discuss that. We'll get to these. We'll get to the burning bush. I hope we'll get it. Anyway. Yeah.
I just want to make one important, in that same parsha, it was, found to me was just very, stuck out, is Hashem, like, all these other religions and everything. And this one, Hashem says, am I not the one who created the mouth?
Right.
And that's amazing.
Well, that's the same point we just said a moment ago. You're worried that you can't speak well. That's what you're worried about? I guarantee you, you follow my job, my mission, and I'll guarantee that they'll understand every word you say. When you go in there to Paro and you say, let people go, you understand? He'll understand it real well. I guarantee you he'll listen to you. Now, of course, take a little bit of time. Paro's a little stubborn guy, and he's getting punished and beaten up and whatever. But the point is that don't you worry about getting the job done. You just do it. And I won't be successful. Who cares? That's not the issue. The issue is your job is to do it. How it gets done, that's Hashem's idea. That's how Hashem does it. You go and try this effort. And Hashem helps you succeed all the way over there. Turn it into these hours. But you didn't plan on it at all. And all of a sudden, it's succeed. That's the whole point of trying to trust in Hashem. It's the same thing with Moshe Rabbeinu, and the same thing with anything you want to take. If you're afraid you can't do the job because you got this problem, you can't speak. What about other problems you got? What's your problem? I tell you to do the job. I guarantee you success. There's no issue. There's no issue. In any event, so without talking more about this here, the point is that we can talk more about the burning bush, the snare, and maybe we will. I do have a whole lot to say on it, but I think that right now we must come to the absolute conclusion that Moshe Rabbeinu did leave to Midian to save himself. Because finally Paro did realize he was a bum. He was a bum in his eyes anyway, and Moshe Rabbeinu runs away to Midian, marries Zipporah, has 2 kids, as you can see over there. But what's interesting is that Yisro then comes back to Moshe Rabbeinu, because if you take a look at verse 1 in 395, here's Yisro, right? And they tell you who Yisro is. Take a look, verse 2. Yisro is Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law. His wife is Zipporah, Yisro's daughter, right? And they have 2 sons, Gershom and Eliezer. Go to 5. Here's the biggie. 5. Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, came to Moses. Now, take a look at verse 1. Take a look at verse 5, and tell me the 2 verbs in each passage. Take a look at it in Hebrew. Vayishma Yitro, Vayavo Yitro. So it's very easy. Easy as 5. You know the 2 verbs? Shem Poav, Aleph, and that's okay. Vayavo. Who's in? You said. Right? So okay, good. So what do we got? So in Hebrew it's easy. In English it's a little tougher. Take a look again at verse 1, verse 5, and tell me Yitro is doing, Yitro is the same man. He's the man in Yitro. What is the verb that he does in verse 1? What is the verb that he does in verse 5? Verse 1, somebody.
He heard.
He heard. Verse 5, somebody. He came. Put them together. He heard, he came. Now, hearing and coming is a very interesting connection. I heard that there's gold in San Francisco. In 1849, there was a gold rush in California. I heard there's gold. But I was too busy to go. I got my own business, I got my family, I got this, I got too busy. But others that were venturers, they went. Yitro was not the only person that heard. Well, what did he hear? Did someone tell me in verse 1 what he heard? All the great things that Hashem did for Moshe Rabbeinu and the Klal Yisrael, and particularly that Hashem had taken Israel out of Egypt. Correct? Okay. So now, he heard about. Let's see some of the things he heard about. Take a look at the left-hand side of 395 in the left-hand column, paragraph 3, number 1, where it says Jethro heard. He heard about the miracles of the Red Sea. He heard about the war against Amalek. Right? He heard about all these things. Right? He heard about it, right? Let's look at the next paragraph. Jethro's coming was precipitated by his hearing of both events. One would not have been enough. The miracles of the Exodus alone could not have been interpreted as punishments for Pharaoh, obstinate refusal to obey God, but they did not prove conclusive that God was so benevolent merely for the sake of Israel. The defeat of Amalek proved that. Okay, but the point is, a lot of things happening for the Jews. A lot of things happening for the Jews. What has happened? Egypt. They fought a war against Amalek. The sea split. There's a whole bunch of other things we're going to talk about as a main focus on tonight's parsha. Well, here's the key. The key is Yisrael heard this. What would you do if you heard all of these miracles happen? Well, you could be ambivalent. You could say I'm busy. You could say I haven't got the time. You could say I got my job. I have a lot of things that I'm busy, you know. Or you could say
I'm gonna go on there.
and say, maybe I should stop what I'm doing and join this historic movement. The idea of putting together verse 1 and verse 5 is because 2, 3, and 4 are digressions. What are the digressions of 2, 3, and 4? Just describes Jethro's family. That's all it does. From what Jethro did in verse 1, we don't see the next. We don't see the next movement forward until verse 5. So what you got to learn how to do is not follow the digression, but instead learn how to read a passage properly and realize that 1 and 5 are connected. 1 tells you he heard, 5 tells you he came. A lot of people hear a lot of things. I heard a big bang. Maybe 2 blocks over. Boom! Big accident. Maybe I came because I want help. Maybe I said I'm too busy. I can't help anybody. I gotta go on what I'm doing. How many people drive down the street on a given night and they see, as they stop at the red light, a big hurry, they see an old lady trying to cross the street. And they say, I'd really like to help the old lady, but I really can't because I got this business meeting and it's really important. And I can't miss the meeting. And I gotta do this. And I just can't, I'd like to do kindness, but I can't. Majority of people, vast majority of people. Then special people say, what? I heard about it. Maybe there's something I can do about it. Loads of people. I would say that in my career, for as many people as come to my class to learn about conversion, I would have received a double amount of phone calls from people interested who never followed up. Maybe I was put off or something. Maybe I wasn't so nice to them. I don't know what it was, but I tell you that for every 50 people that call me, 50 people, another 50 don't show up. 50 people come to me, 100 people call me, 50 show up, 50 don't. And that's been that way all my life. Certain people hear what it's all about and say, well, not for me. A little too much here, There must be a reform rabbi around this somewhere. How many times have I been asked by someone, could you refer me to your reform colleague? I said, sure, over my dead body. That'll be I wouldn't give the reform rabbi a time of day. Ridiculous. People are interested. Take a step towards that. You do. At least 50% do. But that's the whole idea. Yitro heard all of these miracles, realized the uniqueness of Hashem's relationship with the Jewish people over everybody else, and said, I want to come. When he wanted to come, what did he say to Moshe? Guess. Does he say that? Tell me what he said. What do you think he said? He said to Moshe Rabbeinu, hello, Moshe. You know, Rabbi Block, I'm interested in conversion. Moshe didn't know, he just had the fact. But what did he say? He said, I want to convert. If I haven't heard that 1,000 times in my life, I heard it. I want to convert. Okay. So, blah, 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 blah. Thanks for quite that. This guy shows up. I once had a guy, Jewish guy, called me up, said to me, I know nothing about Torah, can I learn? Sure. Tell me about your program. Say, tell me the program. We're learning this, we're learning that. We're learning Parsha, we're learning Mitzvahs, we're learning Shulchan Aruch, we learn davening, we learn Hebrew, we learn lots of things. He said, sounds exciting, Rabbi. That's a great program. Can I come in 6 months? And I told him, are you an idiot? I mean, I never met the guy, so I like you. I moved to the back. What are you, a nut? How do you know what's gonna happen in the next 6 months? How do you know tomorrow you're not gonna go across the street and get hit by a car? That one, a little rough there, man. Not rough at the edge, no big. I think I turned this guy right off. No, never come. Take the next. Hit him between the eyes. You want to learn? So let's go. What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? Let's move with this stuff if it's real. Yisro moves with it. Yisro becomes the second convert in history. And someone tell me the name of the first one. Abraham. Abraham. We're going to learn about his conversion today. I hope we get it. Right? We're going to learn about his conversion and why, after all that, he didn't really make it. We're going to learn why he didn't make it.
They didn't make it. They didn't convert.
We're going to find out. We'll see. Anyway, what's important here right now is to realize what's motivating Yisro. So we're going to find out what's motivating Yisro. Let's take a look back at our Parsha 366 and the departure from Egypt. Now, would you turn on page 369 and find out that Pharaoh had a change of heart, and in his change of heart, right? Let's look at 14 verse 5, 369. It was told to the king of Egypt that the people had fled. How do you know they fled? I thought he sent them out. The answer is he was probably figuring they'd go out for 3 days. Remember Moshe's old threat about 3 days? Give us 3 days to get out of here. So of course he didn't. Didn't get he thought that the 3 days are gone and they're not coming back, right? So it took them 3 more days to get to where Israel was camped, for a total of 6 days. So the great event that we're about to uncover occurred on which day? No, but it occurred on the 7th day of Pesach. If Pesach was the time of the departure from Egypt, and took the Jews 3 days to get it to the Red Sea, and that's what they say, and then the Egyptians say 3 days they're not coming back, takes them another 3 days to get there. 6 days of Pesach have elapsed, And on the seventh day, we learned about this last week, that Pesach is a 7-day deal. Seventh day, something exciting occurs. What occurs? What are you gonna see?
It's like in this.
Right. In any event, take a look at the bottom. Egypt pursues them, overtakes them, camped by the sea. All the horses and the chariots of Paro near a place called Piachirot and Baal Tzfon. They're on the page. Paro approaches. The children of Israel raise their eyes, and they're frightened. Egypt was journeying after them. The children of Israel are frightened. They cry out to Hashem. Were there no graves in Egypt? Verse 11, 371. Were there no graves in Egypt? Why did you let us die there? Why'd you take us out for? First time they came up with that refrain, which we're going to come over again and again. Why'd you take us out to die in the wilderness? What have we done? What did you take us to Egypt for? We said, let's stay here and we will serve Egypt. It is better to serve Egypt than we should die in the wilderness. Verse 12. Isn't that what we talked about earlier? Isn't that how we started the class? It is better to die in Egypt, or serve Egypt, than die in the wilderness. That's what we talked about. Anyway, Moses will assure them, do not fear, he says, stand fast, see the salvation of Hashem, he'll perform for you today. As you have seen Egypt today, you shall see him never again. Hashem will make war for you and you will remain silent. And watch what happens. Okay. And of course, Hashem said to Moshe, what are you crying for? Don't cry to me, don't pray to me. Speak to the children of Israel, journey forth, lift up your staff, stretch out the arm over the sea, split it, and the children of Israel come in the midst of the sea on dry land. Now, everybody knows what we're talking about. We're talking about the most fantastic, miraculous moment in human history. So exciting that if you watch the movie, that the Ten Commandments, you see, wow, miracle of miracles. You can't go to a greater miracle now. Splitting of the sea. And of course, the miracle of the splitting of the sea is remarkable, because you all know, by the way, if you want to see it live, you can see it nowadays at Universal Studios. Right? See it splitting of the sea. Right? The only problem is they get it wrong because they got jaws coming out of it. There was no jaws in those things. God didn't have a jaws there. But the point is that this is the miracle of miracles, the most amazing thing of all. And so we continue on in verse 17. The children of Israel in the midst of the sea, and I'll strengthen the hearts of Egypt. They'll be totally insensitive, and I'll be glorified through power and his entire army, the chariots and its horsemen. Turn to page 373. Egypt will know that I'm Hashem forever and ever. And the angel of God in front of the camp moved behind them, a pillar of cloud in front, and it came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel. There was a cloud, darkness illuminated the night, and one did not draw near each other all night. So you got the Egyptians here, the Jews here. God is telling Moshe, you're going to split the sea tomorrow morning. In the meantime, the Egyptians can't connect to the Jews because God makes this great miracle. So now we got these great events happening. We got the departure from Egypt. We got this great cloud that illuminates and frightens the Egyptians to protect the Jews. And now, Hashem's going to do it all. And so the sea splits. Take a look at 21. And you see the sea splitting, right? You can look at it. You can close your eyes and think about it. You can try and imagine it. And imagine your reaction. You're there. Sea splitting. And the sea is standing like a water, like a big wall. When I was a young boy, my mother, she lived well, took us to the aquarium in the Gulf. The aquarium was a big glass window, right? See-through glass window, and you saw all the water, right? All the fishes and all, right? And you walk right through, so to speak, and there's a glass window there, and a glass window there. And of course, you're not afraid of any of these dangerous fishes because they're protected by the window. That's exactly what happened that day. Big window from top to bottom. And you see all the fishes and all the ocean and all the seaweed and all the different creatures on both sides. Now, somehow miraculously, God made this miracle, and it was like a glass. You could touch the glass, and you couldn't touch the water, of course.
I heard a story about something about pears in the ocean that they grab.
What? Fruits.
Fruits. yeah.
Fruits. That's something else.
Fresh water.
Right, that fresh water. But the miracles are abounding. There were 50 miracles at the splitting of the sea. 50. How do we know? Because in Egypt, the magicians had were overcome by the plague of lice, and the magicians said, "Etzbal Kimi, it's the finger of God." They told Pharaoh, "We can't do this." And the finger of God produced how many plagues? 10. Etzbal Kim, it's the finger of God, and it's right. But at the sea, you'll see something very interesting. Take a look over here. Page 375, where it says there's salvation. In verse 30, on that day Hashem saved Israel from the hand of Egypt. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great hand that Hashem inflicted. It's a lot different than a finger. It's 5 times as much. So it was 10 plagues in Egypt. How many plagues were there at the Red Sea? 50. Right? Let's go back. Okay, page 373. The water now. You see the sea splits in verse 21. In 22, the Jews went through in dry land. The water was a wall for them, as you can see on the right, on the left. And in 23, Egypt comes right after them. Now, what's in the mind of Egypt? Murder. But wait a second. The Egyptians don't believe in God. Why would you go through a sea that splits? I mean, if it's God, then I'm really in trouble. Because he hates me. Because I say people. So why would I go through it? Why would I? And besides, if it's not God, well, whose is it? Or what is it? Who's it going to last? Maybe it's too dangerous to go in. Maybe the Jews got out okay, but the Egyptians, they're scared. I would be scared, but no, they're not.
They went mad.
They're mad.
They went mad.
They went mad. They had what? Rage.
Murder, you're mad with murder.
And you will harm yourself if necessary to do it. So here they come crashing in. Anybody ever seen the movie? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever see those Egyptians drowning?
Yeah.
Oh, it's fascinating.
The horses.
I mean, I was in the movie theater. I was in the movie theater at the time, when the Egyptians were drowning. I stood up in the movie theater and went, yay! 200 people sitting in that theater. It was nuts. Yay! Go for it. Do it more. Get them.
More water.
Get those Egyptians. And they go through, and Egypt pursues them in 23, and they come into the midst of the sea. And in verse 24, confounds the camp of the Egyptians. They remove the wheels of the chariots, cause them to drive with difficulty. Egypt said, I shall flee before Israel, for Hashem was waging war against the Egyptians, and it was too late. Hashem tells Moses in 75, verse 26, stretch out your hand over the sea, and the water is coming back upon the Egyptians, and upon the chariots, and upon the horsemen. Moses stretches out his hand, and the Egyptians are fleeing and churning in the middle of the sea. The water comes back, covers the Egyptians who are coming behind them in the sea. There remained not a one of them. There remained not a one of them. What does that mean? It really means there remained but one of them.
Yeah.
Pharaoh himself. So he should go back to Egypt and tell the truth of God's mind. And so, whatever it is, everyone's dead except for Pharaoh. Children of Israel on dry land, and the salvation on 375. On that day, Hashem saved Israel. Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Take a look at 30, and tell me what's the problem with the Egyptians seeing, with the Jews seeing Egypt dead on the seashore? What's the problem with that?
Should be plural.
Huh?
But the power of Egypt.
No.
They sing,
Say it again?
they sing,
They should have,
yeah, but Hashem made a miracle.
they should have sung. That's what happens with the drown, they sing. But Hashem made the miracle, brought them up. Why?
To show them that he is God and that he is.
To show them that you don't have to be afraid anymore. Let's get rid of that slave mentality once and for all. You don't have to be afraid. You're afraid of the Egyptians, they worked the number on you and on your brain, right? For a century, 2 centuries. Get it? They're done. They're finished. Well, we walked through dry land. Hashem saved us, and then come the Egyptians coming right after us. What protection do we have? Big deal. So you split the sea. No. Why? Now we turn them and we bring the water back and drown them. But wait, maybe they'll get out and find dry land like we did. Okay, this will do it. But now you'll know forevermore. They're done, you're free. And up come the bodies.
That's to heal the trauma.
That's correct.
That's to heal the trauma.
And that's to get rid of the slave mentality. That's the emancipate. So let's understand now. We've got the Jews leaving Egypt. We've got the fire that protects the Jews when on the night before the splitting of the sea. We got the splitting of the sea. And we got the drowning of the Egyptians. And this is really a great motion picture. Gonna win 10 Oscars. Unbelievable. What a movie. Except the funny thing is that the movie really is a little bit too long. You could have really made 4 different movies. You could have made a movie out of the departure of Egypt. You could have made a movie out of fire protecting Israel. You could have made a whole movie out of the splitting of the sea and a whole movie out of it drowning. And what happens, it's funny, is that the Torah puts them all in one parsha. Rather than give them the incredible, they're all incredible. They're not parts of a parsha, they are parsha to themselves. This parsha should have been broken up into 4 parts. And instead what? Instead of one parsha covering all this incredible, this is an amazing parsha of all parshas in the whole Torah. You never find a parsha anywhere where so many incredible things are happening one after the other.
Action, drama, love.
All that.
Special effects.
Special. Here's this one coming up. Then, bottom of page 375, chapter 15, verse 1, look inside the Moses and the children of Israel chose to sing the song to Hashem. What's the singing song to Hashem? A song of praise, a song of exaltation, a song of feeling I'm close to Hashem. What's a song? Human beings connect by virtue of communication. We speak to one another. Dibur. Then there's something a little more elevated called singing, music. Everybody knows the Talmud teaches that the greatest pleasure in the world is learning Torah. The second greatest pleasure in the world is music. Concept of, the young man wants to express his love to the young lady. So he sings her a love song. You can say I love you, and then you can sing. That's all it involves. Singing is known as above the norm, above the nature. That's what people all love music and songs all the time. And that's what he's singing all about these love songs, is the idea that I want to express some deeper feeling. I just don't like you, Hashem. I love you, Hashem. Concept of singing. One of the greatest, one of the 5, we have 5 scrolls, 5 Megillas that are in our Bible. Esther, Kohelet, Ruth, and one more.
Shir HaShirim.
Who said Shir HaShirim? Good girl. Shir HaShirim. The Song of Songs. What is the Song of Songs? The Song of Songs is the concept of that I'm expressing the greatest song of all. And in the Song of Songs, there's 8 chapters. King Solomon writes it, and he writes all about this incredible, expressive love that this man has for this woman. And it's very graphic. I mean, frankly, it wasn't in the Torah and the Tanakh. It'd be X-rated. X-rated. Such a book. You ever read it? Anybody read it? Song of Songs.
Yes.
Everyone's gonna read it now. Can't wait to read that one. Right? The concept of expressing is the idea of saying, for as much as there's this incredible dynamic love to a man and a woman, that's an example of the dynamic love between the Jew and Hashem. And but we use the metaphor of the human love, human experience, to be able to express it, to be able to demonstrate it, to be able to feel it. And so the idea is it's the song of all songs. We often say that it is forbidden to hear a woman sing. Go be Isha Erba. Why is that so? Because, once again, the voice that's expressed through song is in a very high spiritual level. And it really, really does stimulate a man. Just how a woman has to be tznius and modest in her dress, not to expose herself. In the same way, a woman cannot sing a song in front of a man. Because singing, now a woman can talk, but not sing. My son is a chazan, you know. He has 3 daughters and 2 sons. The daughters all sing great, and sons can't sing at all. So the girls sing for the girls. So there's no men around. It's the idea that that's what a song is. The Jews somehow or another have elevated themselves to an expression for God that says, I want to sing to you, God. I want to raise myself up to a level of connection and relationship that is way above and beyond. So we talked about this before. We said that God is a true presence that the world has to know. God, we're obligated, one of the 7 mitzvahs, to know God. But we also said that when you know God, you can revere God, you can obey God, you can listen to God. So our position is to love Him. The Jew is obligated to love God. The whole of his whole heart. Everything. That's a sense of committing your life to this relationship that is everlasting forever. And that's a whole new idea of how we connect. And this happened right here. In history, we fall in love with God right here. Well, what did we witness that made us do that? We witnessed the splitting of the sea. And this great song is so powerful that it made it into our prayer books, and we recite it in the morning service every single day. Every single day. We sing Joshua. Every single day. Now, you'll hear the reading of this song in the Torah this coming Shabbat. And when you read it, when the reader reads it, the Baal Koreh, he'll read a very special thing that is special, different than any other reading throughout the entire year. This is the concept of the great song the Jewish people sang. And this isn't a movie unto itself. This is a parsha unto itself. This is an experience unto itself. So you got all these great things happening all in one parsha. And then you got, the song is over. Let's take a look at page, by the way, page 381, you will see in verse 20 that that Miriam takes the women out and sings with them separately with the drums and dances. Once again, the separation of men and women in these areas, right? The women sing separately. But then There is, at the bottom of the page, 381, the 3-day period, there's no water. And they couldn't drink the water because the water's bitter. People complain. 383, what should we drink? And of course, Hashem sweetened the water. Then, of course, they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palms. They camped by the water. But then in chapter 16, and that's a great miracle of itself, the water. And then it comes to page 6, to chapter 16 of 383, and the journey from Elim, and this is the entire assembly again complains to Moshe in verse 2, and they say we have no food. In Egypt, we had a pot of meat on the bottom of the page.
But they tempted them, that's where it was good the way they did it.
Well, once again, there's this complaint, and once again, Hashem's going to make this incredible.
In their mind, they thought to tempt. They go, if he can bring water, let's see if he can, that was the temptation.
Okay, that's a thought. I didn't sense it from that perspective. That's true, though. You can say that. Well, yeah.
Was this before God told him to speak to the rock and he hit it instead?
Now that's later on. He's going to hit the rock now legitimately. Hitting the rock and getting water out of the rock is not a major problem either. I'll tell you why. Because, you see, hitting the rock and getting water out of it is no different than going to the water fountain and pressing the button. I mean, when you press the button on the water fountain, you let the water come out. Wow. You ever go to a water fountain, press the button, and the water didn't come out? How frustrated you got? Get out water. Kick the water fountain. Kick the water cooler. There's the water. So, of course, you understand that the water is an issue, and so is the bread. If we got man coming from the heavens on the top of 385, rain food from the heavens, call it the man, here they come. Food from heaven. You want food, here it comes. And you know what about this food is an amazing thing. Let's say you like roast beef. Let's say you like steak. Let's say you like fish. Let's say you like ravioli. Let's say you like chicken.
Sushi.
Sushi. What do you mean? What's your name? John! Whatever you wanted, the bun tasted exactly the way you wanted it. Your deal. So you can't say it doesn't taste good, because whatever you wanted to have, right? That's what it was.
But it was based on your faith, right? How strong you believed it.
Your appreciation.
What was it based on your, like, how much you believed it?
Yeah. If you really wanted the one, you really wanted this, that's what it tastes like. Amazing. That's the whole idea. The whole idea is that the one was this most amazing experience. Imagine seeing food come down from heaven. You don't got to go to work tomorrow. Except one little deal. You might want to take a little extra. And Hashem says, nothing doing.
He made it come out of their nose, right?
That's when they what did when they did what? When they did too much more. But that's not it. That's what the meat later on. Point is that Hashem says, you can't take extra. But I need to take a little extra. I need to work more. Because if I work more, put more money in the bank. So I go out there, got them on, and I collect more. What happened to the extra?
It rotted.
It rotted. It rotted. Put money in the bank for the rainy day.
I like when it talks about it's coming down and some people's got thrown like a mile down the road, they had to go get it.
That's
Right,
right.
you said not to put money in the bank for anything.
Of course not. Of course not. Who puts money in the bank for anything?
This is the.
Just spend. Live. On me, baby. On me. So, you understand? Yes, sir.
On Friday, it came double, right? And it was.
Oh, Friday got a double portion, and God said, take extra. Because if you won't, we're gonna be none tomorrow. Because it's not.
So go to Cambridge.
But you understand that is an amazing thing to appreciate, that you can get all these blessings from Hashem miraculously. But wait a second, does that mean the miracle is always going to last forever? No. What it means is that the miracle will last whenever, in whichever manner God chooses for you to have it happen. In that particular time, that was a miraculous time. So in those times, you got miracle in terms of the month.
So
What it- yeah.
Benesh Masot, because the man was created, Benesh Masot, together with the.
But that's correct, by creation.
Yeah.
But now what happens is a very interesting thing. Now what happens is that you have this one coming and you have this realization that's clearly from Hashem. Nowadays, our job is to look at every single event in our lives in terms of what Hashem is providing for us and realize that it's just as much from Hashem. There's no difference between you getting your paycheck and the one coming down. Unless you think that your hard work produced it. Your hard work produced nothing. It's all from Hashem. If you have that mindset, then all of a sudden you find incredible, miraculous blessings. But you have to appreciate that when you get your check on a Friday, the signature on the bottom is Hashem. And then all of a sudden it develops. Persons need to learn to discipline their lives on a financial level and on a sustaining level to know that ultimately it's all Hashem. So you do your job, but you don't extreme it. You don't go beyond it. You don't get too extensive with it. You don't get desperate with it. You do what you're supposed to do. But I have a class tonight, but I have to skip the class because I got this big client who's going to come in and give me a $10,000 deal. Listen, you're going to get the 10K one way or the other. Either you will or you won't. You're skipping the class in order to get the 10K, brings you nothing closer, not 1 inch closer. That's the message of the month. Once again, a great miracle. And of course, we talk about the water and hitting the rock, another great miracle. And again, all these miracles in all this parsha, I'm claiming to myself, I'm hearing this and saying to myself, every one of these are so incredible, are so overpowering, so incredible to witness and to experience. All could be a parsha all by themselves. Why they love it to one parsha. And then finally, the last one. The war against Amalek. Amalek comes and fights us. And we have to fight back. And we win. Now, Amalek had a total advantage. We're slaves. We have no knowledge of war. We have fear of war. God had such stress in the beginning of the parsha. So why at the beginning of the parsha did God take us away from the warlike people? And yet at the end of the parsha, get us right into conflict with the warlike people. Now the bush with the Amalek. I don't see the difference. Why at the beginning of the parsha, God is really afraid that the Jews will see the war and go bananas and run back to Egypt. Here, he takes us right into Amalek, not to see the war, but actually participate in the war.
They're shrinking from the trial.
They built trust already.
Yeah.
Good.
There's an ocean down there.
Oh, is it? All right.
Now they can go on.
Okay. Okay. So the war is an incredible victory. So here's the point.
Because of the transition, because now they're believers.
Okay, now they're believers. So now I ask you the following
They're
question.
at a different level.
All right, we're new people, we're new, whole new people now. So I ask you the following question. There are 7 or 8 great events in this parsha. Your job is to vote for the greatest. And I'll give you 2 choices. The departure from Egypt, incredible. Never before had one slave ever escaped Egypt. On this day, 5 million walk out proud and strong and tall. Protective fire, this allows the Egyptians to harm us on the day before the splitting of the sea. The splitting of the sea itself, a miracle beyond miracles. The drowning of the Egyptians. The great song the Jews sang that made them transition and change. Have bread from heaven, water from a rock. destruction of the most evil nation in the world, Amalek. We fight him and we beat him miraculously. Yoshua, Moshe's disciples fighting the war. Moshe's on a mountain and he's praying to Hashem. And as he's praying, we're winning. And as the arms grow weary, we begin to lose. And come two great heroes and, right? And hold his arms up, but the Jews shall eventually win a war in which they are vastly outnumbered and vastly out-talented and vastly out-armed. And ask yourself the question, which of all these is the most impacting event of this? And so we begin. Ready? And there's no extensions, you have to go. Departure from Egypt. No, you? No, okay. Okay. The great fire that protected the Jews against the Egyptians. The splitting of the sea. Oh. The drowning of the Egyptians. Oh, there we go. There we go. Get him. The great song. You got the song. You got the song. You got the song. You got it. I got 5 songs. The bread, the food. Oh, someone's impressed. The water from a stone. That was impressed. The battle against Amalek. Yeah.
All of the above, that's why it's a little question.
Okay. This gentleman here says it's all one parsha. It was all of the above. And I'm dissatisfied with that, because even though you're right, it's all one parsha, but something's got to stick out. Something's got to move. Something's got to stick. Once again, let's chance to vote. No one votes for the departure of Egypt. I'm gonna tell you something about the departure. You think it's so simple leaving Egypt? Let me tell you something. We talked about Yitro being moved to the point where he changes and he not only hears what happened, but he went and he moved because of it, right? Yitro heard and then came. He came because of all those things that happened. He heard all those things we just enumerated. And you know what the biggest thing was? That hit Yitro the most? Watch this. Look what hit Yisro the most. Turn the page to Yisro on page 395 and tell me in the very first part, in the very first passage, what was it that Yisro heard that made him come? Very first passage, top of the page, 395.
He heard what is God did.
Taken out of Egypt, the departure.
The departure. And no one voted for the departure.
We can't pick
One
all of
vote.
them.
I
What?
had one
We
point,
can't
but I
pick all of
changed
them.
I only took one. You
I
see, by zeroing in on one, you know what you're saying? You know what you're doing? You're getting in touch with your personality. Who are you? What impacts you? I expect people to be impacted by different things.
The drowning.
I'm sorry?
The drowning.
The drowning of the Egyptians. Okay, and you got the song, you got the drowning, and you got the departure of Egypt. What do you?
There is a reason why I chose the splitting of the sea.
Why?
Because it has distinction from the other ones. Because the splitting of the sea was an event that it says the whole world, the water. split.
Correct.
Somebody
You're
had a
right.
glass
Sea
of
split.
water.
Water split all over the place.
France, in France,
Everybody knew that.
So that was.
You're right.
That affected the whole world.
No question about it. Man picks up a bottle of water and all of a sudden the water splits.
There's a difference between.
Whoa.
Let's say the
Let me get out of
miracle
here.
and the whole
Let me
world.
watch that. You're right.
But-
You're right. So
but-
everybody's giving good on, you're all giving good arguments for your thing. But man, it's a song. Who are you for? What are you for? Amalek, kill him, get him. Destruction, evil. Who's Amalek? Germany. Oh, get him. What do you say? You said the song. What do you say?
The two.
No, sorry.
The part
No,
of Egypt
sorry.
and the destruction.
One.
One of.
Ask me what you.
Okay.
One.
Well, okay, I say the destruction of Egypt, because that's a white thing.
Okay, okay, but
And the world sees that.
okay, talk to yourself. Find out who you are. Let me tell you who Block is.
Song.
That's your thing, the song?
think the song.
I don't know.
The song, the
It
song.
has the most,
But understand something about the song, Paul.
The song is prophetic.
Right? But understand something about the song. The song is the only thing in the parsha that is not done by God. Everything else, God does. Every other event is boom, bang, crash, whatever. Who you vote? Who you vote? You.
she votes for you.
Not the big guy, not the girl behind you. Splitting of the city. You say. Splitting of the city. Splitting of the city. That's the thing. If you saw that. You go, who's fainting? I can see all these girls fainting.
But Rabbi, I would say there's a God there, Baal Zephon, right? And he's the Lord of the sea, the north there. So other nations would say that God is the one who split the sea, right? And
Okay,
so
that's a
when
good
they get destroyed.
Okay, you got a
they
good
know that
point.
It's not God, it's a God.
Rabbi, there's another distinction. The splitting of the sea, it says that it's because of the schut of Tzamot Yosef, that the sea split.
That's a good
When the sea saw Tzamot Yosef, it split, so it's associated to Yosef.
Right,
So
so,
something that is associated
so
to
we,
someone.
we say, the sea saw, not a seesaw, but a sea.
The sea saw-
Not a seesaw.
The sea saw-
The sea saw the bones of Joseph. So what did the sea see that made the sea saw?
And saw that it was gonna split.
No,
They
the
saw-
sea respected Yosef's.
Why?
presence
Because
in the moment,
Yosef, you see,
And it split.
right,
So
Yosef,
there is an association to Yosef.
let me explain to you. Yosef,
We didn't hear yours, what was yours?
you want to hear mine? You want to hear block?
Yeah, that's.
Okay, I'll tell you.
Midrash says, that's it.
Hold on, what's?
That's the source. The Midrash says. That's the source for the infancy narrative of Abraham Avinu.
So here's the point. I believe that the greatest of them all is the song. Why do I believe the song? First of all, it's the one thing that we did. And it's in the middle of the parsha, and it changes the Jewish people by virtue of.
Choose, they won't call it choose, I don't know.
But rightly, acknowledge everything.
Right,
Acknowledgement.
I think that song represents the impact on the Jewish people that they made on themselves that God could use. Whatever God did for us, in terms of miracles, impacted us, made us believe, made us feel, made us connect, made us overwhelmed, made us amazed. I want to use the word amazing instead. Amazing, it's amazing. The sense of real change has to come
Within yourself.
from the person himself. All that you see, all these miracles, all these teachings, it's exciting and it's interesting, but it doesn't make you change. And you have to ask yourself the question, as I'm going through life, I'm going to these classes or other classes, conversion classes, tshuva classes, whatever it may be. Am I changing? Or am I the same person? That's the major question. Am I changing? I went to yeshiva, I was 17 years old. I was a wild kid. I knew every rock and roll song on the charts. And went to a few parties and whatever. And I found the Rebbe, and he started to teach. And I resonated with his teachings. And then I found myself actually changing. I found myself maturing from a 17-year-old to an 18-year-old. Nowadays, you don't mature till you're 30. But in those days, So someone reasonable by the time you got to be 18, you were supposed to be someone responsible. Nowadays, you can drink when you're 18, but you can't do much more. Maybe you can vote because you're vote drunk, but that's about what an 18-year. An 18-year-old has got to be probably the most pathetic creature of all time. An 18-year-old's got to be a guy with an adult body and infantile mind. Remember you were 18? You're an idiot.
Rabbi,
And I got a Rebbe. Grabbed me like this, and he said, "Are you a man or a mouse?" And I said, "Squeak, squeak." And he said, "Get your ass in." How long you stay? How long have you been? Baby? Just teens and babies. Babies. How long have you been? Grow up. And that's when all of a sudden I internalize this and it impacts me. And I'm changing. And that's what the Shira did. The Shira was the expression, the song was the expression of the Jewish change, of the Jewish metamorphosis, of becoming about tshuva, becoming a new person, becoming a new people. And that's why God was afraid at the beginning of the parasha to bring them near the Plishtim, because the Plishtim were fighting. The Jews are scared. They're mentally slaves. And then who knows what they'll do now? They'll want to go back. And now, after they experience the splitting of the sea, and they experience their own change. Because let's understand a bit about the song. Let's take a look at the song. The song says, if you take a look on page 375, it says, then Moses and the children of Israel chose to sing this song to our son. It's our choice. We sang. We weren't obligated to. We didn't need to. We didn't have that absolute imperative to do that. It's us that did it. We wanted to do it. And it's then. What's then mean? At that very moment, it's a instinctive response within you. There's an instinctive response. You know, if someone smacks you in the face, what's your instinctive response? Smack it back. We got to learn to have an instinctive response because things differently. An instinctive response that says, you know what, I'm not going to let this escalate. Husband and wife get into an argument, and one thing leads to another, one fight, next fight, everyone says this, that, and that. It's allowing things to escalate. Relax. Relax, take it easy, chill out. In other words, learn to instinctively keep it cool. Learn to develop instincts within you that maximize your experience. Learn to maximize what it means to say a prayer in the morning. Learn to maximize an experience of feeling close to Hashem. Learn to maximize the concept of learning and how much learning makes you change and impacts your whole feeling. And if you feel that, you will change. And your instincts will change. Then you're a new person. And then you're ready. Now, Yitro didn't make it, and I'm out of time. How many people want to hear, spend another 10 minutes and hear what Yitro didn't make? Everybody. Yeah. Okay. Here's what Yitro didn't make. I could put this off the next week. It's next week's parsha. Okay, take a look over here at in Parshat Yitro, page 397. Actually, let's go back to the bottom of 395. Last two words. Moses told his father-in-law, as we go on to 397, everything that Hashem had done to Paro in Egypt and Egypt, Israel saved. How he destroyed Paro, he made Paro drown, blah, 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 right? 10 plagues. all the travail that had befallen them on the way, all the issues that they faced, all the way that they handled the issues, and Hashem had rescued them.
Compassion.
And Jethro, Yisro, verse 9, rejoices over all the good. That's what he does. He rejoices over all the good. Now, in rejoicing, let's take a look at something very interesting. Bottom of 396. And that makes good sense, right? He cares for the Jewish people. He must become part of Jewish people. He must become part of Jewish experience. He's happy the Jews are saved. Like as if he were Jew himself. That's how you join the Jewish people. We're all brothers and sisters. Let's all get into this and rejoice of our salvation. Correct? Look at what the commentary says on the bottom of 396. On the left-hand side, 9 through 12, Jethro rejoices. Although Yitro was not a Jew, and although he had once been an advisor to Pharaoh, he was truly grateful and happy for Israel's good fortune. The word vayicha, rejoice, is Aramaic origin, and it's used here to allude to another word called chadudim, prickles. For his happiness was so great that he felt physically thrilled, like someone who may weep or become faint and is overwhelmed with unexpected joy. Wow. You feel all excited inside, you know, and your body's rejoicing. But then it says over here on the top of the left hand of the right hand column, according to Rashi, however, the allusion suggests that despite his happiness for the Jews, he felt prickles of unease over what happened to the Egyptians. Now, what do you think about it?
Well, there.
Wait, I want to hear what the Gabriel has to say.
Maybe he was like a born bureaucrat.
Aha, politician.
Yeah,
But frankly, do you see the 180 degrees? Do you see there's something schizophrenic here?
yeah, he wanted like social control, but at the same time.
I mean, he's schizophrenic. He's happy for the Jews, but he's sad for the Egyptians. Isn't that a little schizophrenic? Bipolar. He's bipolar, the guy. So then, so how legitimate is this guy's conversion? How legitimate is this conversion? How legitimate? What? I don't know. How do you understand this?
Yeah, but Robert, he had some interest in when the Egyptians drowned, Hashem said, these are my creations, I created them.
Yeah. So, okay. So is there a place?
Hashem himself
Is
said
there a
these
place
are
to feel bad?
Yes.
If let's say we are living in 1945 and we hear that 10,000 Germans were just bombed by the Allies and 9,000 of them died.
It's correct for.
Who feels bad? You feel bad?
Feel bad because our humanity is sunk to such a level.
Okay. So you're saying some parts here. Basically, what I want to say, this is a blockism. You can either accept or reject what I say. But this is how I feel about the legitimacy of Yisro's conversion. I feel that his conversion was not complete. And the reason is very simple. Because when you convert to our people, you have to be a convert that is able to communicate your message to others, particularly your friends, maybe your relatives, and maybe your children. If you can't communicate your message to your children, then really, what are we converted to? You can't show your children a good role model for what we believe in and what our beliefs are and so forth. Then I mean, that's not a conversion. And the Torah teaches that Yisro left Moshe, and he left him to where does it say it over here?
Moses sent out his father-in-law, he went to the land.
Where's that? 37?
401, yes.
401. Okay, well said. Okay, here he's right. Jethro leaves. Right? Verse 27, Moses sent off his father and he went to his land. Now, wait a second. If he's leaving, then maybe he's not staying. If he's not staying, then maybe his conversion was temporary. It wasn't all the way. Let's take a look at the commentary of Jethro leaving on the bottom left-hand side of 400. Jethro leaves. What does it say? The Torah speaks again of Jethro's taking leave. Moses pleads with Jethro to stay, but the Torah does not state clearly whether he did or not. According to Rashi and Sepharno, there are two accounts. If the Torah follows this common practice of including an episode, even though the event in question happened afterwards. Jethro did not leave just now. He left a year later. But the Torah mentions it briefly now. That's one way of learning it. It's discussed more in details in the book of Numbers when it actually occurred. After the year, Jethro returned home to convert his family to Judaism. He remained in Midian, but his children joined the Jewish people to show their gratitude to Jethro by giving his family a fertile land. According to the Ramban, however, Jethro actually left at this point to convert his family and then returned. Thus, our verse tells us that he left with Moses' blessing. The passage in Number relates that after his return, he again wished to go back, but then Moses told him not to do so. Ramban maintains that Yisro gave in to Moshe's argument and accompanied the nation to Eretz Israel, where he settled near Jericho.
Rabbi,
So it's a little confusing. What really happened?
I have a question. There is a.
Hold on, Gabrielle is exasperated.
I have no idea.
What did he really do? Did he really come back? Did he really leave? I mean, he left. There's no question about that. Torah says he left. Did he come back? He went to convert his family. Did his family come back with him? It seems to indicate that his family, according to most commentators, did not come back. Somehow or another, he left in order to convert his family, and they didn't listen. And they didn't listen because he did not give over the whole story. He gave only 2 parts of the story, not a third. What were the 2 parts? The 2 parts were the Jews were saved, rejoice. The second part, loss of human life. God himself cries over the loss of human life. Why should we feel bad about the loss of evil people? We feel bad not that they died. We feel bad that they lived. We feel bad that a person's created in the image of God and deteriorates as an evil human being to become an absolute aberration, a monster.
A monster.
Yeah. I mean, so I mean, he's an animal. He's an animal. I mean, Hitler was an animal. The more bullets you put him, the better. And the whole gang of them, for that matter. Terrorists, pick them off. Go take shooting lessons. Pick them off. Put them in jail? Put them in jail? You don't put terrorists in jail. You shoot terrorists and you don't shoot them to injure them, you shoot them to kill them. Because they are a waste of a human creature, a disgrace of a human creature, a tragedy of a human creature. There was a terrorist activity in the Tel Aviv airport some 40 years ago by a Chinaman. Some Chinese guy came and he went crazy or whatever it is, and he shot up the little airport over there, and 25 people died. And the Chinese guy's father wrote a letter to the Prime Minister of Israel, and he said, I beg of you, please kill my son. Here's the thing. What are we saying here? What we're saying here is that there is that tragedy of the loss of human life long before he's dead. Putting a bullet into him is just completing the job, right? There's no big deal. The sense of feeling bad, therefore, I understand. Where Yitro failed is because he needed to have a third mindset, a third attitude. And the third attitude was, you rejoice for the Jews, You feel sad for the Egyptians, and you feel joy over the fact that Hashem meted out justice. Because justice gives you safety and security in an insecure world. If you see that people are victimized, and let's say there is not an effective court system that will prosecute a guy. I mean, how in the world did O.J. Simpson get off? How did he get off? Ridiculous.
Does he have a Jewish lawyer?
I'll remember that. Of whom we are ashamed. Yeah.
Yitro earned the Parsha, there's a Parsha named after him. So my question to you is, there's so many bigger people that greater people than him, and you're saying he didn't even get the conversion.
Correct.
How come there's a Parsha named after him? What did he deserve the honor of?
There's also Parsha named for Balak. You hear Balak?
Yes.
Bad guy? Okay. Also Parsha named for Korah. You hear Korah? Bad guy? Okay. That's what the Parsha name is. Doesn't mean that he's a good guy. The bottom line is that there has to be a sense of real trust in Hashem. And that trust in Hashem really is the idea that there is a judge and a judgment in the world, and that you can be sure of it. Once you do that, and sense God's rulership of the world, you have a certain sense of safety, a certain sense of security. You have a certain sense that good will be rewarded. It pays to be good. And furthermore, that evil will be punished. And that if evil is not punished, then how much is it worth the reward? The reward is not worth anything. The reward has no meaning. Doing good is a waste of time if everybody's equal. So I heard just today that Sirhan, you know what I'm talking about? The guy associated with Robert Kennedy, right? That he was denied parole or something, right? So that's a wonderful thing. But then I heard that earlier in the year, the Kennedy family or sons came to forgive him. What are these guys, idiots? What are they absolutely out of their minds? You killed my father, I forgive you. What? You should see a psychiatrist. Nuts. Gotta get a perspective of realization that if there is a system of reward and punishment in the world, which by the way, is one of the 13 principles of faith that everybody should know about, right? I was learning on the plane today as I was coming home from Phoenix, going through the 13 principles of faith, reviewing them over and over again to get them clear in my mind, my thoughts. And that's what everyone should be doing, really. If you haven't got a copy of it, let me know on Sunday because I'll give it to you. And the idea is to realize that in my life as a person, what I do matters to the extent. But when you do the right thing, you do get rewarded. When you do the wrong thing, then there is punishment. And to realize that truth is a deep sense of security within Hashem that tells you and gives you that sense of connection that I'm connected with the truth. This is the way the world runs. And therefore, when one sees maybe that things are going good for the evil, don't be discouraged. They'll get theirs. And don't be discouraged to the point where you might say, it doesn't pay to be good. It doesn't pay to do mitzvahs. It doesn't pay to keep Shabbos. It doesn't pay to go to shul. It doesn't pay to learn Torah. I see all these people out there, successes. Don't fall into that trap. There is a judge and jury in this world. And it's Hashem. There is a judgment in this world. There is fair play in this world. There is equality in this world. And make no mistake about it, Hashem is running it on that basis. And in that you can take real safe refuge, real security. Feel real good about that. And that's what Yisrael had. Yisrael did not rejoice over the punishment. That's what he was missing. And when you don't have that, then you don't have Hashem with you. And that's what he failed to go to his family. And that's why he may have been a convert, but there's nothing left for him. And here's the proof that there's nothing left. Years later, maybe 500 years later or so, Shmuel HaNavi, Samuel the prophet, lives in Israel and is told to make a new king and to appoint Shaul HaMelech as the king. And once he does that, he's told by Hashem, go tell Shaul to wage war against Amalek. Remember that war that the Jews fought in the desert, which they beat Amalek but weren't able to destroy them? Now's the time to destroy them. So go and tell Shaul HaMelech to go and get them. We're going to talk about this at a later date. And he tells him, as you drive down the countryside, march down the countryside to get Amalek, you're going to pass by a place called Heber Keni. Heber Keni is one of those 7 names, 2 of those 7 names that belong to Yisrael. And Shmuel tells him, don't harm them. They are our friends, not our people. Heber Keni are the descendants of Yisrael, and they are not our people. They are our friends. So they became nice people, and they were good people, but they did not become Jewish. They never followed. And the reason is because I feel, it's my interpretation, you can accept it or not, that I think that Yisrael didn't give them the full picture. I think Yisrael gave them a picture of rejoicing with the victors, feeling sad for the defeated, and left it at that. And he didn't explain that there is a consequent judgment of which we should be rejoicing. When we see the punishment, victory over the Egyptians, what do? We rejoice, we sing a song. And that's the song that changed us. Because once we sang that song, we became the people that understood that it's a wonderful thing that they drowned, because that proved that God was in control. That proved God was the judge. That proved there's justice in the world. And that's why we sang the song. And that's how we changed. That's how we became Jews. Jews sing to God. The rest of the world talks.
It's God sing to them. Shira Azot. Say a Shira Azot also not here. Also when they got the Torah.
Right, so that Shira, the whole Torah is called the Shira. That's true. The whole Torah is called the song. But the Shira Shirim is a song. Kol HaTorah Kodesh. Shira Shirim, Kodesh Kodeshim. When you enter into the song level, then you enter in a change level. Then you become different. When you're able to express yourself in the form of a song, you're really able to do what? You're really able to you're changing, you're developing, you're moving, you feel it. And that is what the conversion is all about. Changing. That happens with the song. When you're ready to sing, then you're ready. Then you're ready. When you're ready to sing to Hashem, when your whole heart is enveloped with all of Hashem, when He's there, everything in your life, there's nothing else but, everything else is secondary. When you realize how safe and secure you feel in Hashem's arms, and the arms of justice, and the arms of safety, that's when you're ready to convert and convert your family. And that's what Yisrael messed up. So that's how I looked at it. Anyway, I'm sorry I kept you so late. You all wanted to stay and hear that. Anyway,